Hey party people, this is my latest installment of How to Start a Fashion Company series. Are you taking notes? I'm about to lay down a ton of information on all y'all. In this video, I'm going to answer a question I get a ton. How do I get some vague idea in my mind made into an actual garment? Okay, idea to garment. You start by developing your ideas in the design process. I have 38 million videos on design process. I'll post links in the description box. I will also post a list of all the supplies that I use in this demonstration, this video. So check the description box. But I'm going to post links to all the videos on design process, and I'm going to focus on product development process in this video. The sampling process, product development, is the process of making a series of complete or almost complete garments to make sure that the original design is executed correctly, that the materials work with the design, the garments fit and functions well, and is ready for mass production. So the aim of this video is to talk to people interested in mass production, and that mass production means you're going to make multiples, whether that's 20 or 20,000. Okay, the basic process is the same. This is not exactly the process for one-off, made-to-measure, private client stuff. That process is a little bit different. All right, let's go in chronological order. The final step of the design process is to draw flats. What are flats? Flats are the technical drawings of garments, and they are called flats because you're supposed to draw them as if the garment was laid flat on a table. I have lots of videos on drawing flats, and I'll link those below. In most fashion companies, designers draw the flats in Adobe Illustrator. They are the ones to do this because flats are all about hammering out design elements precisely. Next up is the technical design stage. This is when tech packs are made. What is a tech pack? Tech packs are multi-page documents or spreadsheets, often done in Microsoft Excel, that precisely detail the garment. These details are really the things that allow the pattern makers and sample sewers to create your vision. Tech packs include the flats, definitely. The tech packs also include a list of all the materials used in the garment, fabrics, buttons, thread, lace trim, whatever. And measurements, okay, like the waist circumference and the sleeve length, and then details of where the labels get sewn, where the zipper sits, all of that. In some companies, designers create the tech packs. Other companies have separate tech designers, technical designers, that you can also hire a freelance tech designer to help create tech packs. You can buy my tech pack template in my Etsy store and create your own. And tech pack videos are also linked in the description box below. Once you have a decent tech pack completed and you have your materials, you can pretty much get any decent pattern maker to start making your garment. Even if you are your own pattern maker, I think making a tech pack forces you to think things through, plan everything out better, make all the decisions in advance. So when you're drafting your patterns, it's not all stop and think and decide and start again and then stop and then think and then, okay? The workflow is smoother. Another option is to take clothes to a pattern maker for them to reproduce with your changes. You can tell them things like, I want this dress, but 4 inches shorter and with different body measurements because I like the style, but I hate the fit. Or you could say something like, I want this jacket, but with sleeves from this other jacket, and I want to eventually make it in this totally different fabric. Most pattern makers know how to reproduce off of finished garments. Madeleine Vionnet used to drape her dresses on a half form and then hand off the drapes to pattern cutters and sewers. A half form is a miniature dress form. Every measurement is exactly half of your standard dress form. Depending on your design, draping is optional. Okay, Vionnet She designed things that were heavily reliant on the drape, and that's how she designed, by draping. But draping a design is only necessary for specific kinds of designs. It's not necessary for everything. Patterns are not optional for mass production. Okay, patterns are the blueprint of your garment. It has all the precise measurements to cut your garment. So draping is optional. Patterns, not optional. So regardless of who the pattern maker is, you do need one. Pay for the pattern and make sure you own it, whether it is a paper pattern or a digital file. This is the blueprint of the garment. If you own the pattern, you can make that garment over and over and over again in new colors, new fabrics. You can make slight alterations to the pattern and produce that again. You can switch sewing factories and just send off the pattern. Even if you don't have the right computer program to open the file, get the file. You can always send it to someone who can open it. Let's talk about blocks for a second. Okay? A block is a pattern for the base fit of your brand. This block can be whatever category your company focuses on. If you do jeans, for example, you should really work on perfecting the fit. And once you have the right fit, the pattern for that fit will become your block. Future styles will be cut from this block. Like if you do capris one season, you take the block and you create a pattern with just shorter legs. And maybe one season you want to do boot cuts or flares. And then again, you take that block, you trace it out onto a new piece of paper, and then you shape the calves wider, for flares. And of course, the digital version, you just change the calves on the file. Okay. Consistency in fit and sizing is a huge factor in sales and repeat sales and brand loyalty. And also, pattern maker becomes faster and more efficient because you have the base fit and you just make a few changes. Okay? You can work with blocks whether you make patterns by hand or by a computer program. And pattern making programs often come with blocks, but they're not always the best. I hear designers complain about them. And you should create a block based on the fit you want for your specific customer. Often, blocks are cut and sewn into garments and used as a reference point in development. It's called a fit sample because the block is all about creating that consistent fit across all of your jeans or all of your shirts, whatever. It's often used in fittings so that all the other styles can fit like the fit sample. Slopers are not blocks. Slopers have no ease, have no seam allowance. All right, so you get your pattern made, you have your fabric because you ordered it way back during the design process period, and now you can cut and sew your first samples. Who makes these samples? If you are good at sewing, you can make them. You can hire a sample sewer to make them. Some companies have an in-house pattern making and sample sewing team. Some companies hire out sewing factories. There's a lot of options, okay? Now, let's talk about all the different kinds of samples. Okay. The first sample you get is called the first sample. Sometimes they're called the original sample, design sample, development sample, but this is not the muslin. The muslin is called the muslin. I know these names get real tricky, huh? Not all designs require a muslin drape, remember? This first sample is the first complete garment cut and sewn to spec according to the tech pack using the correct pattern and final materials. Okay, so not muslin. If you find things aren't working, you make corrections to the tech pack and the pattern and get another one made, and that's called your second sample. And then you just keep going with your third sample and your fourth sample. Good God, I hope you don't have to get to a fourth sample. That's terrible, okay? So if the third sample is perfect, then that becomes your final sample. Having a good tech pack and a good pattern maker is key to smoother sampling process that wastes less time and money on constant revisions. Once you have a sample that makes you happy to run production on, this is your final sample. This is the last iteration done before going into production. So sometimes it's called a pre-production sample, or pre-pro for short. You should keep a final sample in-house at all times and then make copies of the final sample for other tasks. One of the final samples can be used as your fit sample, as I discussed a few minutes ago. Another final sample can be used as a sew-by sample. It's called a sew-by sample because this is the one you send to the sewing factory and tell them to sew your garment exactly like that sample. Get it? Sew-by example sample. Say that 10 times fast. And that's whether you send that overseas or give it to your sewing team in the next room over. Okay? This beats written instruction any day of the week, and some factories won't sew without a sew-by sample. The final sample is also used to do the costing of the garment, so sometimes it's called the costing sample. At this point, you're probably annoyed at all the different names and thinking, why, Zoe? Why? You're probably thinking of this in terms of a one-person show, you doing everything, maybe with a partner, but these sample names come from bigger companies where different people are doing different things with these samples. For example, the production people doing the costing only know it as the costing sample. Is this the one I can use to do costing? Yes or no? That's all they want to know. Okay? And however else the sample gets used for, they don't care. Okay? Smaller companies can do things like take the costing sample, use it as a sew-by, they can multi-purpose samples. If you are running a new shape, a new fit, you should do a size run. And these are called size sample, size run, size set, sizing samples. You get the idea. Okay? This is a set of graded samples, one of each size that you plan to sell. During the sampling process, you should have been cutting the middle size of all the sizes that you want to sell, because this is the best way to fit garments and then grade them up and down. Okay, so if you're doing sizes extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, your sample should be a medium. Grading is a process in which you create patterns for smaller and bigger sizes. Using the previous example, if you're doing jeans, let's say you have the perfect jeans fit for your brand and you made a fit sample of your sample size and you want to grade the pattern, and you quote unquote test the grade by cutting all the sizes and fitting them as well. Some companies will do every other size in a size run to save money. For me, it depends on the garment. Jeans, the fit is so important. I would test every size. But pajamas, something like that, boxy loose pajamas, I would only do every other size. Now we're at the point where we are preparing our marketing and sales materials. Up until now, all the samples have been the same size, your sample size, except for the size runs. And some companies will cut samples specifically for photo and runway, and often they will be in a smaller size. Okay, so those of you who are wondering, Zoe, those runway models, they are not mediums. They are not the middle of the size run. Yeah, a lot of people like to do their photo shoots for their lookbooks, for, pretty photos for their website, or runway stuff with size 0, size 2, much smaller, taller models, okay? And these are called photo samples for your lookbook, editorial samples to be sent out for photo shoots, or runway samples for shows. So yes, all your other samples should be your middle size, but many brands like to use smaller models for runway shows. And so this is up to the company's discretion and the brand look that they're going for, okay? Now on to sales. I have a playlist called Fashion Sales, so I'm only going to talk about sales in terms of samples. Okay, wholesale is cut to order. You show off your stuff, buyers order bulk quantities, and you produce to fulfill those orders. Direct to consumer retail involves you cutting inventory and having it available to ship whenever you get an order, or have inventory in your brick and mortar store. Sales samples are sent to wholesale sales reps. If you use a showroom, they are often called showroom samples. These samples are copies of the final sample, but usually done in all the colorways that you are offering in that style. Buyers like to see the garments in all the colors. And sometimes they like to hold the colors up to their face. Sometimes they like to try them on. And it really helps sell the garment if you can see the whole thing in the correct color. At least have some decent size swatches if you can't cut all the samples. If you're doing online sales only, you don't need sale samples in all the colors. You just photograph the photo samples and create different colorways in Photoshop. Production samples, in my opinion, are only necessary if you use one company for sampling or do all the sampling in-house and use a different company to do your mass production. In that case, you definitely want the company doing the production to send you a sample of how they're going to make your garment. So you send them your sew-by sample. They send you the production sample. Sometimes this is called the counter sample. Your sew-by and the counter sample should be identical before you approve it for mass production. TOP samples, short for top of production, TOP. Okay. These samples are not really samples, but they're just actually one of the garments from the very beginning of the production run. It's basically the factory saying, we have started production on this garment. This is what your production run looks like. And please only stop production if something is an absolute freaking disaster because we are sewing up a storm now. Ship samples are pretty rare and only used in wholesale, and some people haven't even heard of these. These are samples that are packaged for shipment. Sometimes buyers want to know how you're going to ship the clothes, how it's going to be packaged. So the ship sample will be tagged and bagged. Maybe it's folded, maybe it's hung on a hanger, all of that. And, don't make these in advance. Only make them if the buyer asks for them because it's so rare. And generally only department stores request this level of attention. Organize yourself and plan out carefully how many samples you need for the size and type of business that you run. Not every business needs every kind of sample I described, and the smaller companies can use the same garment for multiple reasons. Big companies have even more kinds of samples, but honestly, I think I covered the really important ones. Okay? Track your samples carefully and include a sample tracking sheet in your tech pack. I've said this in so many other videos. You should treat your sample like a bag of money because it is. Okay? Any producer of anything will tell you never lose your prototype. A lot of time and resources went into making it. Okay? At this point, you know the sampling stage, and then you can move on to production. And I already have that video, and I will link it in the description box. Please give this video a thumbs up if you learned something new today. Share, subscribe, hit the little gray notification bell. And if you are still confused, try watching this video a couple more times because I am aware that I gave you a ton of information, but I felt that it was important to keep it all in one place, in one video for continuity and kind of comprehension's sake. Okay? Good luck with your businesses, with your sampling, and I will see you in the next video.